to another episode of My Soul Connection. I'm your host, Billie K. Kavert. Today I'm joined by Nadia Last, a therapist, group facilitator, and podcast host for The Current, which explores the changing energetic currents of our collective consciousness. She's also the founder of Moonrise, where she teaches and shares human design as a framework for understanding how we're each wired to move through life. In today's episode, Nadia shares human design as a practical tool for self-awareness and personal growth, from recognizing our natural strengths to understanding how we make decisions and connect with others. It gives us a personal roadmap, showing us how our energy naturally works, how we make decisions best, and how you're built to operate, so you can stop forcing yourself to fit into ways of living and working that don't actually align with who you really are. A quick note before we dive in. Ran into a few technical challenges during this recording and lost the second half of my interview with Nadia. The universe stepped in, bringing us Nadia's good friend and Moonrise business partner, Sam Fotenhauer, who joins me in part 2 of this human design conversation to pick up right where we left off. So if you've ever wondered how to bridge who you are with what you do, this conversation is for you. So let's get going and be sure to come back to listen to part 2. But first, here's my conversation with Nadia Last. Welcome, Nadia. Thank you so much for being here.
Billie, I am so thrilled to be here. I know that this podcast has been a long time coming for you, so it feels really kismet for us to be sitting across from each other, finally recording an episode, and seeing you in your podcasting studio feels pretty surreal. I love it.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I feel like I owe you a debt of gratitude there, because I think you kind of nudged me in that direction, partly with human design. We'll talk about that through the episode, but the encouragement about, not being afraid to share my voice and speak my truth. So it's a pretty exciting day. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, I was wanting to kind of share with the audience how I came to find you, and then how we got to know each other a little bit, because it's kind of interesting when you get on your own personal journey. These different doors start to open for you that you don't even know are coming, and then everything just seems so interconnected. So I actually was listening to Rosie Acosta's podcast a couple years ago, and she had 2 ladies from De Luna on her podcast talking about human design. And I was really intrigued by everything they shared. I'd never heard of it before. And I've always been kind of like a very black and white thinking corporate girl, just didn't have a big spiritual side to myself, but I started dipping my toe into that several years ago. And I just thought this stuff is really, it's spiritual, yes, but it's practical and hands-on, and like a tool I can wrap my arms around too. So it really interested me, and I started doing some additional research. When I did a search and found you, I found your podcast, The Current, which I then started consuming every single day because I loved it. I just resonated so much with the stories you shared, not only about human design, but your experience in corporate America and leaving that, and how you kind of transitioned out of it. So I became a big fan, and then ended up booking a reading with you, a human design reading. I think it was back in fall of 2023. From there, we ended up finally meeting in person at a retreat in the spring of this year, and the rest is history. And I think you've kind of encouraged me along the way to get on this podcast train and dig in more to human design. So you're the perfect person to be here to explain it.
I was just pulling up your chart again because it's such a gift to revisit it 2 years, almost 2 years later.
Mm-hmm.
You have so much energy from your throat center, your throat chakra, like how you're meant to communicate, to your intuition and your sense of self. And it's very cool to kind of experience those gifts in real time. So it's very sparkly for me to revisit that information at a different juncture of your life, where you're digging more deeply into what feels soulful and passionate for you. So.
Well, thank you. It's funny that you say that, because I think most people who have known me my whole life know that I'm very outspoken. I'm not a shy person at all. However, often when it came to something that was really, meaningful to me or emotional to me, I would hold it in. I wouldn't express myself. And I would tell people that I always felt like I had an elephant on my chest, or like my throat chakra was blocked. But over the course of just understanding that I needed to be able to start verbalizing more and communicating more through my voice, it just, like, that really started to open up for me. And so then come full circle to human design, when you talked to me about my own personal design, which we'll get into a little bit more, it became even more of a useful tool, and I feel like it's broken me open. So it's very cool.
Yeah, all the roads in our charts lead to our throats for everyone. And so self-expression is such an important theme. And we're recording this in Gemini season, which is all about communication, self-expression. So it's very meant to be. I also want to say that De Luna was my first human design reading ever. I got a reading from those 2 girls.
And I heard that on one of your podcasts. Yeah. That's so funny. Yeah.
So I love that they were kind of like the pathway in for you as well. And I remember during my reading, they said just a small thing at the very end of 2 hours together. They were like,
Mhm.
you would be really good at studying and sharing human design if you felt called to it. And I kind of tucked that away, but it was the one piece that I needed to kind of like set my soul on fire in this budding interest that I had in spirituality and human design. And it's very cool that I could then pass the torch of excitement to you. Like one thing that I may have said during my reading with you that
Right.
kind of sparked something that was always within you.
Oh, well, big shout out to Dayluna then for both of us. Well, one of the things that I wanted to start with, just to kind of set the foundation here, is I read something on your website, which I thought was very apropos to today's discussion. And I'm just going to read a little excerpt from your website. It says, when you turn down the volume on everything else in your life, a surprising thing happens. Your inner voice emerges. Once I was able to clear the debris in my system, I started to hear my own inner wisdom for the first time. I started listening to what my soul wanted. It was during this period of humble reflection that I found human design, a system that beautifully articulated my life experience, my gifts, blocks, and boundaries, and how I'm energetically designed to work. I loved that. I just all resonated with all of it, and it just sets the stage for this conversation so perfectly. So, with that said, tell us a little bit about yourself, just kind of your background, your upbringing, your former career in the corporate world, and how you transitioned out of that and found human design.
Billie, I can't believe that you took that quote of everything on my website. It like gives me goosebumps up and down my body. I just want to quickly speak to this
Hmm.
realization that I had. That was spirituality for me. I didn't realize that up until that point in my life, I'd always sought answers outside of myself in achieving and climbing the corporate ladder and peers and teachers. And I didn't realize, and this is what hooked me, is that if you actually do get quiet, there is this inner wisdom that exists within each and every one of us. And human design as a system is intended to actually get us in touch with that voice. And each of us has a unique way of accessing what's called our authority or our inner wisdom. But it really is about getting present with ourselves. And that to me is just such a wild concept. I think master meditators know this,
Hmm.
where, but it sometimes takes a while to get to that still quiet place because our world is full of distractions. And so it was during COVID that the world kind of shut down. And I was having this really existential moment within my career. I'd been working in corporate marketing, product marketing for fintech companies in San Francisco for nearly a decade. And I was just feeling so burnt out and so not alive. And I consider myself to be a fairly optimistic and excited human about life. And I had been really climbing these various ladders, getting really excited about perhaps being a chief marketing officer one day. And it's so funny to look back on my motivations at the time. I feel like if I'm really honest with myself, my religion at that time was safety and safety through money.
Mm.
But safety was driven by fear. Like, would I not be safe? And so much of what I did at that time was to make money and to be successful, whatever that meant. But when the world shut down during COVID, it was this really interesting time where all of a sudden I had to reckon with how dissatisfied I was chronically with my life and how challenging it was becoming to get out of bed every morning. And that was my sign, like my spirit's depressed. There's something up here. And it was
Right.
in this moment of like grappling with the bigness of that. Like, what do I do with this? If the ladder I've been climbing my whole life isn't the right one, what is the
Right.
right one?
Hmm.
I had to go through this whole existential reckoning with my internal value system. What
Right.
makes a meaningful life? What will make me satisfied and fulfilled in life? There was actually this corporate exercise that we had to do for an offsite at my job at the time. And it was kind of a big question, but they asked us each to write a 1 to 2 sentence inscription that would be on our tombstone. And I
Ooh,
remember going
that's
home and I was
high
like, this is
pressure.
kind of morbid and
Right.
intense. But I think the intention was to kind of unearth some intrinsic motivation to bring us more deeply into our jobs and into our work.
Hmm.
But that singular question that I was asked through work actually kickstarted my desire to leave my job. So I think it had
Oh,
the opposite
interesting.
effect for me. um, yeah, and I ended up coming up with this sentence that still is my North Star now. It's like, here lies Nadia, full of zest for life, who encouraged every person that she came into contact with to become the best, most essential version of themselves.
That's
And
good.
so now, fast forward 7 years, I'm working as a therapist. I'm about to become licensed in California as a marriage and family
Yay.
therapist, which
And
is
you're going to be
exciting.
amazing.
I got into human design at that time, started giving readings for friends and family, and now I've given over 2,000 readings. It's been this
My
like side
gosh.
project that kind of like, took on
Could
a
be
life
its
of
own
its own.
business in and of itself, I'm sure. Yeah.
Totally. And it continues to fascinate me because it's the
Right.
pathway in for people want to connect with their true selves, but sometimes they don't know where to start. Like, do I just sit in silence and meditate? Human
Right.
design is such a great tool. It's kind of like brain candy, but it is such a deep tool for introspection.
So would you say
Um,
that you had this moment of realization that you weren't aligned, you weren't necessarily in love with your career anymore, you were just feeling stuck, feeling burnt out. You had the realization that all that was happening, but then you found human design after that, and that it was human design what kind of got you out of that, or were you already on the path?
yeah, I think I was already on the path and I was just grasping. And so
Mhm.
I was reading books on astrology at the time. I downloaded the app, The Pattern, if anyone's familiar with that. Um, I was just digging deep into myself. I was doing breath work for the first time. I was
Mhm.
really just seeking any sort of alternative methods of, like, if this isn't it, what is it? Was the big
Right.
question of that time.
Right.
And I remember a friend texted me, like, hey, have you heard of human design? And it was this moment of, like, whoa, like I felt sparkly all over my body. It's like wild to express, but there was this kind of like feeling of resonance. Like I'd never heard of it before. I started reading as much as I could about it on the internet. I got this reading with the De Luna girls. And yeah, it was during that first reading, actually, that I started to hear these qualities reflected back to me that were not about like who I was expressing to the world at that time, which
Mhm.
I call her CMO Nadia.
I've
It's
heard
like
you say
this.
that. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I need
It's
to
just
come
we
up with
have
my own acronym for myself.
exactly. Exactly. For you, it's like it's this like high-powered saleswoman, and
Right.
it's yeah, it's so interesting because we can get so conditioned by the environments that we're in. So I was in, tech San Francisco, the heyday of that time, and my
Yeah, and you can
peers
start to
and
overly identify with your job too, right? It's like you
totally
think you become that, and you wake up one day and go, "Wow, I'm actually not that." So much
100%.
more to me.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm grateful to COVID for that time too, because I think my life was so filled with work that there was hardly a moment to be able to kind of like take a breath and be like, is
Right.
this really me? So when I was no longer going into the office, like that was a huge shift for me to be like, whoa, do I actually want to go into this office?
That's really interesting, and I'm sure if any of my friends and colleagues from corporate are listening to this, they'll agree. COVID really changed our business as well, and same type of thing. It allowed me a moment. Well, we didn't have a lot of time to breathe because we're in medical, and so we were working 24/7 during COVID. But we were home, and we weren't out seeing customers, and we weren't doing all the things that we normally do, and it just it made us all, I think, reevaluate not only how we did the job, but also, is this the right thing for me moving forward, or how do I need to change and adapt it? So I totally get just having that moment to stop grinding so hard in the normal, usual sense. And whenever you have a shakeup, it just sometimes produces some new ideas for you. So,
It's really scary for people to take a pause
hmm,
because the first moments of silence are terrifying.
right,
It's like, what will be here? Like, what will come up? What if I'm truly just with myself?
right.
What will bubble to the surface? And people are very scared not to stay on the train of productivity. I
Hmm.
honestly don't think if COVID hadn't interrupted the high speed train that I was on, that I may have not gotten to this point, in my 60s, to become a therapist.
Wow. Yeah, I think we have a tendency in American culture to be so productive that we're just always on and we're not leaving ourselves any moment. And then when there is a moment, like you said, it makes people really uncomfortable. I have a few friends who have just recently retired from our company, and I think they're experiencing that for the first time too. It's like it was easy to sort of ignore things in the past because you're just so busy all the time. So you sweep it under the rug and move on. And now it's like, nope, it's time to look at it. And it's a good thing to look at it. Yes, it's scary. Yes, it can be confronting, but it's good.
It's sometimes helpful to have supports in place and
Right.
different tools that you're working with. So
Right.
I'm grateful that in that kind of cavernous emptiness of that time, I started studying human design and it felt so soul nourishing to me.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and there's something really surreal about having an objective system that's based simply on your birth time, the time that you were
Mhm.
born,
Mhm.
repeat these things, these qualities back to you that you're like, this is how I feel on the inside. And
Right.
maybe I've never even shown other people these aspects of myself, but I feel it within me.
Mhm. Hmm.
And it's really encouraging.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, on that note, we should probably tell people what human design is all about and lay the foundation a little bit.
Absolutely. So, human design is a system based on where the planets were at the time that you were born. It's sort of like astrology, but a much deeper take of it. So, I've always known that I'm an Aries sun, and Billie, you know that you are a Virgo sun,
Mhm.
but there's a much more specific flavor of that for both of us, and it goes much deeper. So, it's based on these four ancient wisdom systems that were channeled in different parts of the globe and have been used for centuries. So it's part Western astrology, part Hindu Brahmin chakra system, so the wheels of energy that move through our bodies that many
Mhm.
of us know through modern yoga practices. It's part Chinese I Ching Book of Changes, which is the oldest book divination tool on the planet. It's really cool. It's basically like how the Chinese people sort of like watch time, and different themes of human experience come up
Mm,
every year around the same time. It's very interesting.
wow.
And then finally, it is part Jewish Kabbalah tree of life. And these systems have been used separately, but human design is the first system that says actually all of them funnel up together and they work as a synthesis of one another. So if you look at them all together, they create this basically map of your energetic body
Hmm.
and how energy moves uniquely through each of us. And it forms 5 different energy types that you can be in human design. A lot of people start with energy types. So projector, manifesting generator, generator, reflector, and manifester, which we can talk about what those mean. But it goes so much deeper. It goes into the major themes of experience that you will likely be leaning into in this lifetime. It goes into your gifts, how you're here to communicate, how you can best be in partnership, what deeply motivates you. Um, yeah, it's so many things in one. And I think I always want to caveat and say that human design is not a system that you need to blindly believe in. I was raised in the church in a pretty oppressive church culture where it's like you believe what we say and just sit
Hmm.
down and listen.
Right.
Human design, I think, is a conversation starter. And that's why I love to pair it with my therapy practice. I'll
Right.
often offer something like, does this resonate with you? And it'll bring up a memory that someone hadn't thought of since second grade. And it's like, oh
Oh,
my
wow.
gosh, I have always been into this thing. And it'll kind of like reawaken pockets of self
Right.
that were kind of left by the wayside in
Hmm.
pursuit of ambition, productivity, money, etc.
Wow, that's really amazing. I can see how just listening to you describe it, how if someone's really stuck in life, you don't have to totally understand the whole system. You don't have to go down the rabbit hole because it is a rabbit hole. There's so much information. I feel like I've only scratched the surface, but just by understanding the energy types and some of the unique gifts and qualities that you have on your own can help you kind of start to move forward on a path that's a little bit different than the one you've been on. I think there's something in it for everybody. So,
Yes,
with that, let's talk a little bit about the energy types. In the report you gave me, which was very thorough, by the way, you said in a functioning society, manifestors hold the vision, generators build and create the vision, projectors guide the process, and reflectors let everybody know how the process is going. Which I thought that's an easy way to understand it, but I really keyed in on in a functioning society because, as you know, there are people who may be a bit off track and don't feel like themselves lately or a little bit lost in life. So they would be perhaps an example of someone who's kind of gotten outside of those boundaries. And I'd just love for you to comment a little bit more on each energy type, but also what it looks like when someone gets off track and how they can use that to to be their best selves.
totally. And it's so hard to synthesize the energy types into these kind of like core components. So somebody
Hmm.
hearing that who's not a manifestor is like, "What? I can't have vision." And that's not the case.
Right.
It's more that we're all puzzle pieces and we all
Hmm.
play a unique role. And then as you sort of like understand the energy types more deeply, there's so much nuance for each person.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think maybe the way that I would describe it, so there are 5 energy types, but 2 of them are kind of like subtypes of the same one of
Right.
generators, which is what you just listed. So
Hmm.
we'll start with manifestors. They're quite rare. They're 8 to 9% of the population. And manifestors are here to basically have these like really intense urges that they receive about what it is that they want to do and create and manifest in this world. And they have nothing kind of holding them back, except that they need to inform the people around them, let them know about their vision, let them know where they're going, let people either hop on the train or get off the train.
Mm.
but they are a train on its tracks. You will know a manifestor when you meet them. They have such a unique energetic signature. It's honestly, I always say that manifestors are the thing that makes me, quote, believe in human design the most, because when you meet a manifestor, you will never forget them. Like there's
Absolutely.
just this way in which they unapologetically are designed to move through the world, especially when they're not, overly conditioned to
Hmm.
apologize for who they are. They take up space. They know where they're going. They know, the fastest way from point A to point B to point C, and then their energy has to rest. So it's
Hmm.
like they burn very bright and hot when they're on, usually at the start of each day. And then by the end of the day, it's like it's off and they need to go to bed and they need to rest and they need to recharge for the
Right.
following day.
Are they usually, I'm just curious because I actually only know one. Well, no, I know a couple of manifestors all from the same family, which is interesting.
Cool.
But are they generally pretty big personalities too? Or are there personality characteristics that go along with it?
This is where I think that personality tests like Myers-Briggs or Enneagram can be wonderful complements because it's less about like personality. It's more about like energetic signature. So I know a lot of actually quiet manifestors who quietly just move towards what it is that they want
Mhm.
with a lot of confidence. They just know what it is. They're here to be basically like pure doers and creators, to receive
Okay.
the lightning bolt of inspiration and just move towards it. I do know a
That
lot of
makes
manifestors with big personalities. Actually, the founder of human design was a manifestor, which makes
Oh,
sense because they're
yeah.
here to catalyze change and initiate new things in this world.
Right.
And I think a lot of us are conditioned to be manifestors, like go in your garage and hack on something and create something from your brain and then bring it into the world. And a lot of us can feel a lot of frustration or bitterness if we're not able to act in that sort of way. But manifestors are meant to be sort of singularly focused. And even though it's frustrating for them, they're meant to really bring other people into what it is that they're creating so that other people can help them and build and add to it.
And why do you say that it might be frustrating for them?
Because manifestors want more than anything just to be left alone to do their thing.
Oh, okay.
They want to like have a Saturday with nothing to do, to be like, what do I have the urge to work on in this moment? And
Gotcha.
like the slate is clear, everyone, is out of my way and I can just kind of like go.
Okay.
So it's like the most counterintuitive that human design for each energy type has basically like a this is your way of creating more ease in your life.
Hmm.
And for manifestors, it's informing, letting the people around them know, even though they want to be really private and just kind of do their own thing. When they inform everyone else, it creates more ease because everyone knows either I'll get out of your way or I'll help you in some way. Because
Right.
manifestors can't do it all on their own.
Which is probably where the generators come in, right?
Exactly. However, I think that it's kind of a myth that generators hear about human design. They're like, okay, so I'm just supposed to work on other people's ideas.
Yeah.
Billie, you founded this podcast. You had the idea for this podcast. You're a manifesting generator. And there are two types of generators. There's pure generators and there's manifesting generators. And
Hmm.
these are our basically creator beings. Manifestors have this kind of like whiz of inspiration and
Hmm.
they're like pure like ability to do things. But it's like generators have a lot of energy to create and build things in the world, but they have to be in response to something. So it
Right.
might be an idea that a manifestor has. It might be for you, Billie, that you listen to a podcast and you're like, podcasting sounds amazing. Like I feel it in my body. I'm responding in some moment. It's where the idea comes from that's different. For manifestors, it's like from themselves in a
Right.
way, I think
Hmm.
from the divine.
Right.
And then for manifesting generators and generators, they're meant to sort of move through the world and sense like what makes me feel excited and
Right.
alive and what gives me something. Like I have so much energy to give. And generators can work for much longer hours, whereas manifestors burn bright and hot and then have to kind of take a break.
Right.
Generators can go, 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 go when they find what they love, but it has to be activated by something outside of them, kind of like lighting them up in some way.
Right. Yeah, and I can definitely relate with that too because once I found out I was a manifesting generator and I started to understand what that meant, it was actually very validating because I spent a lot of my life forcing things to happen and, just kind of under that idea that if you want something, go out and get it. And so I would just tackle it. But I wasn't leaving myself enough time to pause and think about it and even allow myself to have a gut check and respond to it. And so I would find myself in these situations that I didn't really want to be in over time, but now I have to slow down a little bit and take that holy pause. But I've always had so many different interests in so many different areas of life that I think I was driving my husband crazy for a long time. He's like, oh my God, she never slows down. As soon as she puts one thing down, she's on to another. And it almost appeared as if I was lost and didn't know what I was doing. So I just kept going after something new. But it's just that I had so many interests. And I guess I really was responding to things in a way when something would light me up. I'd like, oh, I want to go try that. But it was just very validating to learn that no, there's nothing wrong with you. That's kind of what a manifesting generator is, how they're made up, and just embrace it, but learn to slow down a little bit and let the environment bring things to you and respond to them as opposed to having to go out and force everything.
But for most generators and manifesting generators, when they hear this, should feel like a relief. Like,
Right.
oh, there doesn't have to be so much pressure on me to figure the thing out or do the thing in a certain timeline. Like, there's this call and response with the universe, which takes a lot of surrender and trust. Like, all I need to do is to continue giving myself things to respond to and trusting the wisdom of my body to reveal to me, oh, I feel a spark of excitement, or I don't.
Right.
The core difference between generators, which make up about 33% of the population, and MGs that make up about 37%. So that's a wide swath of people right there
Sure.
that are generators and MGs. Is that generators, when you're working on something, you're going to want to have more of a singular focus at any one time. It's like A to B to C to D, kind of achieving more mastery in that lane of focus. Whereas manifesting generators, exactly what you're describing, Billie, you are MG to a T, is you work more in a circular way. Like you work on something for a little bit and then your energy gets kind of bored. So you got to go do something completely different. And then you go to this other project and then you come back to the original project. Or maybe you leave it by the wayside because it's no longer exciting. It's just the way that you fan your excitement is a little bit shorter lived and it works in spurts. And you have to keep yourself kind of like balancing multiple plates to stay engaged and excited in your life.
Right. Yep. Spot on.
But this is where the nuance comes in because I look at your chart, Billie, and I'm like, there's this specific channel you have, which is the channel of basically talent and mastery. So you are an MG, but you are also designed to really work at the crafts that you find in life, like over 7 years plus, to have it be less of a skill and more of like an art form in your life. So there's these juxtapositions in human design that give us much more nuance. And I want to give people a flavor of that because it goes so much further than just your energy type. There's like all these layers that layer on top.
That wraps up part 1 of my conversation with Nadia Last. Please be sure to tune in to part 2 with Sam Fotenhauer, Nadia's Moonrise business partner, for a deep dive into each energy type and some practical uses for human design in your life. Sam will break down your human design profile so you can see natural patterns and life themes more clearly and make choices that feel right for you. Thank you for tuning in today. Please share this episode with others and be sure to rate and review it too. Until next time, keep connecting with your soul.